This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. This episode is brought to you by BNC Pro, the brand spanking new digital wealth platform featuring an all-in-one suite of customizable institutional-grade applications that help you manage your crypto investments. Yes, research, chart, screen, analyze, optimize, report, and more. BNC Pro is the ultimate portfolio tool for individual or enterprise use. Streamline your workflow, manage your crypto, and master this brave new asset class your way with BNC Pro. Go to bnc-pro.com now to create your free account, or just look for the link in the show notes to this episode. Now, on with the show. My guest today is Sam Blackmore. Sam is the CEO and founder of Vimba, a non-custodial platform that makes it easy for users to save Bitcoin and other crypto assets with a DCA, dollar cost average strategy. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Hi, Andy. It's great to be here.
Great to have you here, Sam. And funnily enough, this is actually the 50th episode of the Crypto Conversation. Yes, we've clocked up 50 episodes. And, I was just checking back to see when the first episode was published. And that came out June 19 last year. And as we record today, it is June 9 a year later. So by the time this podcast is published, I reckon it'll be, bang on around a year exactly to put out 50 episodes. So I'm pretty pleased about that. So auspicious occasion, Sam.
Wow, congratulations. I know it's hard getting things started, and I feel like some sort of honoured guest to be the 50th.
Well, I'm actually quite excited to talk to you, Sam, for a few reasons, really. Firstly, because I know that you yourself, while you're not a New Zealander, I know you have spent quite some time in New Zealand, and I believe you started Vimba from New Zealand as well. So I think today, it'd be good to try and achieve two or three things. Number one, I'd love the listeners to understand what Vimba is. And of course, for anyone who's not aware, perhaps, new listeners or people that are newer to the space, to understand, the power of dollar cost averaging. And I'm sure you have your own thoughts on Bitcoin. So, I'd love to get those as well. How does that sound?
That sounds great. One thing, Andy, I'm definitely a Kiwi. I may not sound like one, but born in Takapuna.
Yes. Really? Yes. Fantastic. You are a Kiwi.
I am a Kiwi,
my mistake. I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Grew up on the North Shore, but I have spent sort of half my life. I came to school in the UK and back to New Zealand. So back and forth a little bit.
That almost makes my first question slightly redundant. I was going to, of course, ask for your background, where you're from, and how did you end up in New Zealand? But we've sort of covered that. So maybe, skip to the next question, really, which is, after you've sort of done your schooling, what did you do next? Because I know you are a software developer, but so tell me, what is your story? And what is your background, Sam?
Yeah, when you look back, it is always sort of strange to see where you've ended up now. I mean, believe it or not, Andy, I wanted to be a surf photographer. So that was my dream. My dream was to be hanging out in big barrels and taking pictures of guys flying through the tube. So up to the age of 25, I was pretty much a surf bum, traveling all around New Zealand and to places in Europe and Morocco, and surfing as much as I could, and taking a lot of photographs along the way. So I was also a bicycle courier for a couple of years as well as surfing. And I used to take my camera with me and take photographs of street graffiti. For about 6 months, I was cycling in Bristol in early 2000, which was just the time when Banksy, if you've heard of the artist, graffiti artist Banksy at all?
Of course, very familiar.
Yes. So he comes from Bristol, and I started taking photographs of his work and all the other artists that were emerging from Bristol at the same time, doing this new type of graffiti, the stencil graffiti. So I collected quite a large collection of photographs and wanted to do something with them, create a project. So I bought myself How to Do Dreamweaver. I don't know if you remember that, but it was a very simple sort of website building piece of software. And in the evening, I taught myself how to build a website and host these photographs, which started to lead me towards using computers. Yes, to cut a long story short, I ended up doing software engineering when I decided that I probably had to get a real job instead of just riding my bicycle. But the connection with surfing didn't stop there. My main dissertation in the final year of my course was developing a surf forecasting system, a piece of software that digested model data from the publicly available weather model data and used algorithms to determine the quality of surf at beaches all around the UK. And there was actually I was actually in Ragland, living for a year, working with a company which developed artificial surfing reefs, which I don't know, some people may remember. I don't know how many Bitcoiners are surfers, but they were a very innovative company at the time. And that's what led me into developing a surf forecasting system. So that was my first startup, was a surf forecasting system that I did straight out of university. And I managed to take that to acquisition by an action sports media company in London. Actually bought it off me by the skin of my teeth. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't understand about marketing. I was an engineer who wanted to create something cool. So that worked out quite well. And I ended up coming back to New Zealand, where I contracted for a number of years doing software engineering projects until I started up my first software company. Well, it was a web shop. It was a web shop. We built websites and technical software. It was we weren't doing WordPress platforms. We were building sort of more. I saw a gap in the market in Auckland for a really technically orientated software house. So I founded that with a couple of other people, and we got that up and running.
Interesting that you mention Banksy, and look, this is a little bit of a side point, Sam, but do you have a view on who you think Banksy is? Are you aware of the theories?
No, but I've never really dug into who he potentially is. You know, I like the fact that he keeps himself anonymous. It enables him to make statements and for people not to judge the statement on who he is as a person, rather than, you know, take his statement and the message that he's trying to get across in its more pure form, rather than, you know, mixing it with the person. So no, I've never really looked into who it is, but I like his sense of humor and I like his style. Yeah,
no, look, I think that's some fair thoughts from you there, Sam. All I'll say is, you know, look, whether these theories are true or not, you know, there's I think a famous story about a particular band from Bristol, and someone did a little bit of a data analysis, if you like, that looked at the touring dates as that band moved around the world, and there was if you could almost lay over the data points from new Banksy stencil artworks appearing, and they had a close correlation with the tour dates of that particular band. But yeah.
Oh my God, that's one creepy fan, whoever did that.
Indeed. All right. Well, so when did you, as you're a software developer and you're back in New Zealand, when did you first start to interact with Bitcoin and start to go down the rabbit hole, Sam?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, I've always been interested in technology that liberates, really. And as a result of that, I'm a long-time Linux user. So Linux, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but Linux is an open source operating system that you can run on your computer. Now, I actually first saw Bitcoin mentioned, you know, whether or not my memory is completely accurate or not, but it was on the front of a Linux magazine in the newsagent, which seems quite old-fashioned these days. But it said, Bitcoin, is this the most dangerous open source project ever? And so that certainly caught my attention. And that was probably in about 2011. And I was fascinated by the potential social impact of Bitcoin. And also from an engineering perspective, it was the first decentralized distributed software application. You know, it was a pretty incredible problem that Satoshi solved, in that respect. So I was fascinated by it, and I got an account on Mt. Gox, like a lot of people back then, because pretty much that was the only place to buy them, and started wiring money to Japan and buying Bitcoins and, downloading the blockchain into my laptop and running the Bitcoin Core client and just mucking around, sending Bitcoins to my friends, pretty much treating it like monopoly money at the time.
And so this, you said 2011, is that the case?
Yeah, so I think I'm a bit hazy, but I think I was probably buying Bitcoins on Mt. Gox early 2012.
Yep. So, and look, by any standard, that would make you, I would class that as a true OG Bitcoiner.
Yeah, I don't know what that term means these days, but it is. It seems to be the case that that's considered, quite early on in Bitcoin's history. I mean, even bought Litecoin on BTCE at some point as well. That's pretty radical.
Indeed, and well, I suppose because you started Vimba in 2014, right? So, what was the thinking between? How did you go from playing around with, as you say, what was effectively a monopoly money at the time, and when did you start to take things more seriously, and what was the impetus to set up Vimba? Well, you better tell us what Vimba is as well.
Yeah, sure. I was totally obsessed by Bitcoin and the concepts and the deep philosophical potential of Bitcoin. I pretty much had no one else to talk to about it. I mean, you could chat in the forums and things, but it's not quite the same as meeting people in person. So I started the first Bitcoin meetup in New Zealand in 2013, and that gave me a chance to meet other New Zealanders who were interested in Bitcoin and, obviously stop boring my wife senseless by talking to her about it. So, yeah, that's when I met Paul Salisbury and a number of the other New Zealanders who have been involved in this space for a long time. Yeah, I thought there had to be an opportunity in this space to create a business. And initially it was really just a bit of a social experiment for me. I was driven to try and get Bitcoin into the hands of as many people as possible. And that's pretty much still the mission of Vimba today. So a Christmas holiday, we had an idea. It was actually a friend of mine who had the idea to automate, to create a simple savings platform. And the first version I coded up over a Christmas holiday. I literally buried myself for about a week and a half and put together a very basic website which had 2 form fields on the front, which is very different from a Bitcoin exchange today. But literally, you couldn't log into it. All it had was 2 form fields. One was a Bitcoin address, which was the Bitcoin address that you wanted the Bitcoin sent to. And the other was a form field which we took your mobile number. And then you press submit. No email address, no identifying information, no KYC, no nothing. And when you press submit, we just text you a bank reference code. This was a unique code that which you could attach to your deposit. And if a deposit ended up with a reference, we bought the Bitcoin and we sent it to the Bitcoin address that was attached to that reference. And that's all we did. That's as simple as that. We didn't know who the people were, where the Bitcoin was going, we didn't know anything. You couldn't change your Bitcoin address. You couldn't log into the website at all. So it was a very basic service, really just for friends and family and the Bitcoin community in New Zealand to accumulate Bitcoin in an automated way.
Amazing. Did you ever, in those days, say 2013, 2014, did you ever pop out to the kim.com mention at all?
No. I've always been pretty low profile in that respect. I don't know. I've got enough on my plate day to day with the family and things that I pretty much just stick to my knitting, get on with my work, and I don't have much time for other stuff.
And look, Sam, that might seem like a strange question, but the only reason I ask is because I spent a period of time around that period. I suppose consulting to Kim when he was running the Internet Party, which ended up contesting the election that year in New Zealand. And I just remember there were on a couple of occasions, because I don't know if you recall, but Kim, he used to invite people out there somewhat randomly just over Twitter. But we had a couple of events when and I was out there, and some Bitcoiners came out. on at least 2 or 3 different occasions, because he's a Bitcoiner himself, and one time some guys brought out a portable Bitcoin ATM, and that was kind of my first encounter with Bitcoin. So, but there weren't too many people running around in New Zealand with portable Bitcoin ATMs in those days. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah, I think I know who that was actually, but no, I never got a chance to frequent Kim's mansion out there. I do think he's an interesting character, and I quite like him. But I've never met him in person.
Indeed. Well, so Vimba really is, what you've done is you've created a platform that gives Kiwis, you've obviously taken the platform to the UK now, but it gives people who are perhaps new to the space the opportunity to really just dip their toe, as it were, into the crypto waters and start saving, just a little bit amount, or whatever they're comfortable with of Bitcoin, just on a weekly basis. And what I like about Vimba, Sam, is that a lot of people, when they first discover crypto, they get kind of seduced by this idea that they need to be trading crypto, and that's not always the way to go, I don't think. So what I like about Vimba is you really have made it easy for people just to start slowly and just start chipping away, accumulating or stacking sats, as they like to say these days. And it has been a little bit of a journey now, because you started 6 years ago, and now you've gone from New Zealand and you're now available in Europe, as I understand it as well, right?
That's right. Yep. I mean, the goal was to grow the business. We were desperate to get out of New Zealand. The New Zealand market is really too small to create a scalable business.
Yeah.
Of this nature. Also, it's very tough in New Zealand. The regulators and the banks are quite prudish towards Bitcoin. It's been a real challenge. Whereas the environment in the UK and Europe and the US is a lot more positive from an investment perspective, to people who are much more open to new fintech opportunities. So even though the business is a New Zealand business, to really reach its full potential, we needed to get out of New Zealand.
That makes sense. So also, just for anyone that's listening, just explain where Vimba is available now, just in case anyone, they might be keen to sign up, or perhaps introduce a family member.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're available in over 30 countries, so we're available throughout the EU. Anyone that can make a SEPA payment to us can use our service. And in the UK, we're available. So all our services are available in the UK, so instant buy, sell, and the dollar cost averaging service as well. So it's very simple, literally takes 3 or 4 minutes to onboard. And once you've onboarded, we give you a unique bank reference and our deposit details. You set up an automatic payment, and Bitcoin gets sent to your wallet every week. We have an integrated wallet, or you can connect your own wallet. You can connect your Trezor, your Ledger, and we will automatically deliver to that each week without you having to do anything.
Did it ever surprise you, Sam, that this idea of setting up a kind of set it and forget it dollar cost average service, where you literally just connect your bank account, set up an automatic payment, and then set up your wallet address, and you guys take care of the rest? And once you've done that setup, you don't really even need to look at it again. And it just seems to make so much sense as a way to slowly accumulate Bitcoin. And yet there doesn't seem to be too many other services like that in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Why is that?
Well, it's definitely starting to become trendy now.
It is, but it's only just starting to happen, right, with the stacking sats meme. That's
right. I mean, we tend to sort of see the journey, the journey that people undertake to becoming a Bitcoiner is that 60% of people who sign up to Vimba have never bought Bitcoin before. So they're first timers. We're trying to create a really great experience where they feel very comfortable with a brand which is open and approachable and feels very normal for people to do. So what seems to happen is that people stay with us for a while, and through the process of education, they get exposed to the whole a lot of the other projects in the crypto sphere, as it were, and they start to get more intrepid, and then they might get an account on Binance and they do a bit of trading. And then they go through that sort of experience where possibly more likely than not, they lose some money. And then they come back to Vimba. So we either get like brand new Bitcoiners or experienced Bitcoiners who decide, okay, listen, I just want to accumulate. I'm not really interested in trading.
Sam, can I just stop you there and just say that, without wanting to embarrass myself too much, you pretty much just described me, because that's exactly been my experience. And I think I probably got my first Bitcoin using Vimba back in the day, and then as you've pointed out, sometimes it's people get interested and they think they can go and start day trading crypto on Binance or Bittrex or something like that, and again, that doesn't always go so well, and then you sort of come to that realization and think, well, maybe just dollar cost average is the way to go.
Yeah, it's definitely the journey that we see people go on the Vimba site, and people I talk to who use Vimba. And that's why more experienced Bitcoiners feel very comfortable recommending our service, because that's what they generally try and help people not make that mistake of getting involved with trading. And because now trading is a professional pursuit these days. You're trading against algorithms, you're trading against bots, you're trading against teams who have all that sort of research and data advantage that you just don't have. So it's not like the old days where it was really, the charts are going up, let's buy some now. The charts are starting to go down, let's sell some now. It's a highly technical and developed industry now. My advice to anybody is stay away from trading. It's not like it was. It's highly professional now, and mostly you're going to be competing against software, which can absorb a lot more data than you. And move much more quickly.
Yeah, and trading, if you can't identify a really strong edge to your own arsenal, then you probably shouldn't be sitting at that table. No,
not at all. And I learned that myself. I went through exactly that cycle myself. So yeah, I'm actually a very typical Vimba user. I've got 3 children. I'm an entrepreneur, so I have very little money. And I just have a bit to save each week. So I'm building Vimba pretty much for myself.
Fantastic. Well, so how do you go about the some would say difficult task then, Sam, of attracting new users and acquiring new customers? Because, as much as I think the product, the platform and the mission, it does speak for itself, but you still there's a little bit of a knowledge gap for new people coming into the space. So how do you, particularly when there's not a roaring bull market happening, so how do you go about acquiring new customers? Is there a challenge there?
Yeah, it is. It is really challenging. There's we're a very small player in the industry, and also everything is 10 times harder being a Bitcoin company than a normal software company. We are banned from advertising on a lot of the major social networks. Fortunately, we are able to advertise on Facebook, but we're not allowed to advertise on Twitter. We can't buy Google ads. Last time I checked. So Reddit, we can't advertise on Reddit. So most of the effort is content marketing, SEO. It's creating educational. I'm trying to create educational opportunities where we can attract users and teach them about Bitcoin. It's doing podcasts. It's that sort of stuff. It is really hard. That's something that we're constantly experimenting with when it comes to marketing and traction. I mean, over here in the UK, we're particularly trying to align ourselves with the neobanks. So if you know Monzo or Revolut.
Yes.
They are what we consider sort of fintech curious. So they're people who have decided to move from traditional banks to a new banking experience, and therefore are probably more open to modern financial services such as dollar cost averaging. So, over here, we're really trying to target our messaging towards people who are Monzo users or Revolut users. And that's our sort of strategy over here.
Very good, very good. Well, I saw a press release from your team, I think, that mentioned that you had recently ticked off your first goal of acquiring 10,000 users or 10,000 customers, and the release mentioned that I think 3,000 new users had joined this year in the lead up to the Bitcoin halving, which was about a month ago now. Was that the case?
Yeah, it was indeed. I think everyone saw quite a pump during that period. There was a lot of media. As soon as the Google is a really good indicator of the volumes on exchanges. When the Google search trends go up, then the sites get busier. We get busier, the exchanges get busier. So yeah, we did have a really strong period of growth through that. And, it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out over the next 6 months. But yeah, our volumes the last couple of months have been up by probably 30 or 40%. So, that's great to see.
Yeah, well, it's actually quite an interesting time certainly for Bitcoin. And look, interesting is probably the wrong word, but it's a tense time around the world, of course, at the moment. But as we record, Bitcoin is back just a little bit under 10K. As I say, we had the third Bitcoin halving last month, and this is all happening against quite a chaotic global economic backdrop, and the Fed has got the money printers are whirring, and there's sort of political unrest around the world. What's your impression of what's happening, and what are the possible ramifications for Bitcoin going forward, do you think? Any comments, Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with all the economic turmoil, people are starting to understand the value of hard assets, and this is really Bitcoin's perfect storm, is the way I see it. And I think this is Bitcoin's opportunity to really become a part of a person's day-to-day financial experience. So, what we're looking at over here in the UK is that it's a similar situation for a lot of young people all around the world. Is that it's very hard to get ahead. It's very hard for people to save money. It's very hard for people to make a small return on their savings. Traditionally that's either been saving in the bank, and the interest rates are so low that that's not going to really make much difference. There's stocks and shares, obviously, which are considered a more traditional approach, and now Bitcoin. So 42% of millennials. This is a survey that Forbes did recently. 42% of millennials indicate that they're interested in buying Bitcoin in the next 5 years. So I think that's where, the major growth is going to come. Bitcoin is usually more likely going to be the first investment that a lot of these people make. So, the reason I'm over here in the UK is that it is the heart of fintech. It's the heart of the latest innovation when it comes to financial services. And the reason for that is open banking. So open banking is a mandatory sort of legislation that was passed in sort of 2018, forcing the banks to open up their APIs so that users could share their data with other services. And the reason for this is that it enables new and innovative financial services to be made, and at the same time sort of reduces the competitive advantage that the banks have by siloing their users to sort of stop a similar situation to what happened in 2008, where the banks got too big. So, this is where we see the opportunities. We really want to make Bitcoin as normal for people to be accumulating as they would be saving, in a savings account in their bank. And with open banking APIs, we can literally connect Bitcoin to people's bank accounts over here in the UK and the EU. So that's kind of where we're heading. And the way I see it is that people will be opening their Monzo account, and they will literally be connecting Bitcoin. So they'll be rounding up their savings into Bitcoin. They'll be dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin. And whenever they want to, they've got a cash squeeze, maybe the car has broken down or one thing or another, need a bit of cash, then they'll be using Bitcoin to collateralize a small loan to get them through. Because Bitcoin will be the first piece of collateral that they own, which will enable them to leverage. They'll be able to leverage Bitcoin in order to, borrow money and that sort of thing. So, that's why I really see Bitcoin as a a financial service or an asset which will enable people to access new financial services alongside their present banking. I think it's going to be quite normal in the next 3 to 5 years. From what you can see, the awesome service that BlockFi is offering, although that's not a retail experience right now, that's the future for Bitcoin.
No, look, I think you're exactly right, Sam, and it's Bitcoin has time on its side and demographics on its side, right? As the millennials, more and more millennials, and then the generation below millennials get accustomed to digital money for a digital world, and then I love the example of the Monzo and is it Revolut over in the UK, and then you've got the Cash App in the US, and then of course you've got this DeFi movement which is just growing at a staggering rate, and as all these different apps and new fintech financial services, as they all start to interlock with each other, then things are going to happen quite quickly, I think.
Yeah, I think the Cash App is a great example. So the Cash App, they literally put a buy Bitcoin feature in I think it was end of 2018. So they literally, it was a niche feature that was sort of hidden down the bottom of the menu. And now at the end of 2019, or end of 2020, when they released their latest public figures, over 50% of the total revenue now comes from Bitcoin, from the Bitcoin feature within the Cash App. So it's gone from becoming a banking app to becoming primarily a Bitcoin app. And those users that do buy Bitcoin within the Cash App are 2 to 3 times more profitable to Cash App than their standard users who don't buy Bitcoin. So that kind of indicates the real opportunity that's here in the UK to create a service that integrates directly with all of these banks. And that's what really we're trying to do here at Vimba, is that we're creating the Cash App feature for all the banks in the UK and the EU.
Wow, fantastic. Sounds very exciting, Sam. And look, just a final word on dollar cost averaging, because I did mean to mention this. Obviously there are a lot of different Bitcoin dollar cost average calculators across the internet, and you do have a version of one yourself on the Vimba website. But if you just you can add in whatever value you want in one of these calculators, but let's just say I've put in $50 a week starting in around this time in 2016, so 4 years ago, and that means you would have spent just over $10,000 US in this case, and that means you would now have a little bit over 4.16 Bitcoin, and that would be valued at around 40 grand US, and an almost 300% return there. So that just speaks to the power of dollar cost averaging, and it's compound saving, if you like. It does work, right, Sam?
Absolutely, yeah, it does work. It's I think it was, what is Einstein's quote? The most powerful force in the universe is compound interest, or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, it's just a really sensible thing to do. It's a really painless thing to do. And I'm not. It's very difficult when you come across as being dogmatic about Bitcoin. I just think it's a really sensible thing to do alongside whatever else that you're doing to save money. It's start with $20, start with $30. Think long term. We're always encouraging people to think 2 to 3 years. Don't think 12 months. Set it and forget it, and you're accumulating the ultimate scarce asset, which that's a difficult thing for people to understand, but it really is it's digital gold. It's the most precious thing that you could probably ever own. So yeah, that's what we try and encourage people to do.
Yes, that's exactly right. And even if people sometimes take it's a little bit of a journey to fully grasp the true digital scarcity of Bitcoin and what makes it special in that way. But the easy way to describe that is simply to say that it is digital gold. But obviously, even just outside this idea of saving Bitcoin, it's really just Bitcoiners also talk about this idea of having a low time preference, right? Or a long-term time preference. And that's really the same thing. It's just about saving a little bit every week and, putting off a short-term pleasure for a long-term gain. And that's kind of that simple lesson is one of the most important lessons in economics and in financial literacy, really.
It's kind of old-fashioned, isn't it? Saving.
It is, but it makes so much sense.
Well, I'm very hopeful that when people own Bitcoin, they definitely change their perspective on the value of things. So, this is kind of a sort of a way out theory, but I'm hopeful that the more people that own Bitcoin and understand the value of it, there'll be a reduction in consumerism. Because when you have Bitcoin, you do think very carefully before you spend it. You do consider what you're actually purchasing with that Bitcoin if you have to liquidate some. And, in the old days, we get, you go for a walk around the warehouse. This is kind of this is for New Zealanders. They understand what the warehouse is like. And sure, you can pop down there at the weekend and you can grab a few plastic spades and a bucket and you can keep the kids entertained. But, on Monday, they're broken. Those items are not quality items, and you paid a couple of bucks for them. Now, what you really should be doing is when you spend your Bitcoin, you think of buying that metal spade. You think of buying that spade that's going to last you 20 years. That's the sort of thing you transfer Bitcoin for, is for quality items that add to the quality of your life. So I'm hopeful that with more people using Bitcoin, more people understanding why it's a scarce asset and why it's so valuable, it will hopefully make them consider their purchases more carefully and hopefully reduce their sort of consumer footprint.
I think that is a great point, Sam, and I have noticed that in my own experience, and I think you're exactly right. As you start to acquire Bitcoin, and you think, what's the opportunity cost of buying a piece of plastic junk for half an hour of short-term fun, and then it's really just taking up space in your house. And what could that be worth 5-10 years down the line? But it's not just Bitcoin that's done this, and I'm sure you'll agree. Also, the pandemic, I think, has perhaps opened people's eyes a little bit, because when you're stuck in lockdown and you're not sort of spending your discretionary income just day to day, and then you stop and think after a month or two of that, you're like, well, do I really need to be out there spending money every day on things I don't really need?
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. I mean, the lockdown has emphasized this even more. What is important, what really makes you happy. This isn't really a Bitcoin podcast here, but it is the simpler things which are important to people, which genuinely make your life good. So I think that there is a reset that's happening. It is, people are seeing the world differently. We can't just jump on a plane and travel. So to get that quick fix that it's being marketed to us every day, and then we realize that really, by getting our friends together and having a barbecue in the backyard, we can get that sort of connection and support that we need to have the strong community and fulfilling lives that we're looking for.
Look, I think that's a nice place to pause, Sam, and I think let's go to a very quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll finish off with the very famous crypto conversation hot take round.
Whether you're an enterprise fund manager or a retail trader, buying and selling cryptocurrencies successfully requires price discovery you can rely on. Brave New Coin's liquid indices provide trusted US dollar prices for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ripple. Featuring end-of-day or intraday outputs, you can count on the BLX, ELX, and XRPLX for accurate US dollar pricing for smart contract oracles, settlement price discovery, net asset valuation, and performance analysis. Visit bravenewcoin.com to find out more.
All right, we're back, and I am with Sam Blackmore. Sam is the CEO and founder of the Vimba, a dollar-cost savings Bitcoin platform. Sam, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid-fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Bring it on, Andy. Let's go.
All right, Sam, I just want your hot takes, your hot fire. Take your best shot. Here we go. Where do you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-coin opportunist spectrum?
Okay, well, I'm pretty solidly in the Bitcoin maximalist corner, although I would say that I'm not toxic. I'm still open-minded. So, yeah, I love the Maker project. I think it's fascinating, although I don't encourage anyone else to invest into anything but Bitcoin.
Very nicely said. All right, Sam, what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
That Bitcoin is probably the only project with total integrity that I know of. The only other project that is curious in this respect is Grin, the Grin coin. They have tried to launch a coin in a way that it has the same integrity as Bitcoin. So yeah, I find that interesting. So yeah, my conviction is that Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency with total integrity.
Interesting that you mentioned Grin though. So Grin, that's the privacy coin that tried to, have a kind of a sort of fairly similar to Bitcoin origin story, semi-anonymous, but it hasn't done too well from what I recall.
I think there's been a couple of articles recently, that were pretty media swayed. So you see an article and you develop an opinion, but I think if you look at the project, it's still pretty strong.
Very nice. All right, Sam, I ask every guest this question. It's slightly contentious. Who do you think wins the American presidential election 2020?
Oh, God. I've got to be... Please not Trump. Please not Trump. I've just deleted all the news apps from my phone because the world is too crazy. I can't take it much more. So,
fair call.
Yeah, please not Trump. And Joe Biden is not that awesome either. I feel sorry for you if you have to live in America.
Okay, I think we better leave that one there. All right, Sam, Bill Gates famously said, we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. Can't wait to see what you have to say here. What do you think the blockchain space looks like in 10 years' time? Yeah,
I see Bitcoin as part of everyone's day-to-day banking. I see Bitcoin accounts and savings accounts in people's right next to people's bank accounts. That's what I see in 10 years' time. I also think that Bitcoin will be part of national currency reserves. I see a lot of the developing countries starting to invest in Bitcoin. I know Iran has now publicly stated that they're interested in acquiring Bitcoin from a national currency reserve status. So, yeah, I think that the tides are turning, and I see Bitcoin influencing everybody as much as the internet has done.
Has Iran really say that? I know I've seen headlines that they're looking at adopting a nationalized crypto mining strategy.
Yeah, I mean, this is dodgy territory, but it's a way for Iran to bypass sanctions.
Yes, 100%.
They can't use the banking networks with USD, so you can use Bitcoin and still trade with their group of countries which they operate with. Which, I'm not going to delve into the details of whether or not that's good or bad, but you can see that's an obvious reason for them to start using Bitcoin.
Certainly, and what's also fascinating about those kind of strategic geopolitical moves is, the game theory involved. If one or two nations do start to add Bitcoin to their national reserves, the game theory incentives really start to look extremely interesting. But anyway, Sam, William Gibson, he said, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. Can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people just aren't really aware of it?
Virtual living, it sort of happened to us. It got forced upon us overnight with the virus. And all of a sudden, people are working from home, people are working remotely, people are, doing their Zoom yoga. So sort of virtual living and distributed living, decentralized lifestyles are right here, right now. And it took the virus for more traditional companies to realize that this could happen and accelerated everything, So I think the virus has accelerated sort of virtual, remote and distributed and decentralized styles of work in a couple of months. You know, it's almost, whether or not that's 10 years in the future, I don't know, but it seems to have happened incredibly quickly to us.
It really has. The virus really just has put a great big accelerator around a lot of these different trends. But look, let's zoom out. Sam, we're almost finished, but what do you think is the long-term future for the human race? I know these are deep questions, but do you see dystopia or utopia?
Oh, I'm quite a realist. You know, I think that we should be focusing on what's happening on the planet rather than trying to get into space. I don't think getting into space is really that useful in the next 100 years or so. Yeah, I'm kind of a realist in that I try to find line between, you know, keeping open to the problems that we have, but at the same time making sure generally I'm a half glass full type of chap. So, you know, I approach each day positively, but try to, you know, stay real about the challenges that we all face as humans.
Nicely said, Sam. And yeah, always better to be an optimist. You'll have a better time. But finally, Sam, what is your favourite science fiction book, film, show, or universe?
Yeah, it has to be Neuromancer by William Gibson, his first book. I mean, I think that is probably the sci-fi book from which most of the concepts for a lot of concepts for sci-fi films that have been taken from in the last sort of 15 years. So that whole sort of Tokyo dystopian hacker vibe that you see in Blade Runner definitely came from Neuromancer. The idea of virtual reality came from Neuromancer. So many ideas came from Neuromancer that it was a book that was way ahead of its time. I love that book.
Yeah, Neuromancer is a true cyberpunk classic, and you know, so many crypto people, they always go for Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But Neuromancer just as influential, I think, for sure. A very nice choice, Sam. Well, hey, thank you so much for talking to me today. This has been a lot of fun. There's nothing else to say, really, except the microphone is yours. Please tell the people where they can go to find you on your various platforms and where they can go to learn more about Vimba and perhaps even sign up or look to get their family involved.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andy. I've really enjoyed it. You can find me on Twitter, Sambo Jambo. I don't tweet too much, but definitely feel free to connect with me there. And of course, yeah, Vimba.co. You know, please sign up and give it a go if you're in the UK, EU, or NZ. And you know, you can always contact me, sam@vimba.co. If you've got any questions, please feel free to email me.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much, Andy.
Boom, there you go. Thank you to Sam Blackmore, CEO and founder at Vimba. Hey, you have reached the end of the 50th episode of the Crypto Conversation. Thank you to everyone for listening. If you are a regular listener and subscriber to the Crypto Conversation, yeah, thanks for sticking around. Please do keep sticking around. And yeah, been a fun ride to get to 50. No doubt we've got another 50 to go and then more beyond that. If you are a regular listener and you do enjoy the show, please make sure you're subscribed. And of course, you know, I say this sometimes, but would really appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star rating and a review in Apple iTunes and the Apple Podcast app. That would mean a lot. Thank you very much. What's in the show notes today? Well, there's certainly a link to Vimba. And look, if you live in New Zealand, Australia, the UK, or the EU, then Vimba is for you. And it really is a pretty cool platform if you want a super seamless, easy solution just to save Bitcoin on a weekly basis. That's what Vimba does. Just makes it super easy to stack sats, and who doesn't want to stack those sats? It's what we do. Also, a link to Banksy. Do you remember Banksy, the political artist? So we did talk a bit about that. It did occur to me that, you know, the cool thing about Banksy is that he is anonymous in the same way that Satoshi is anonymous, and it's really that anonymity or pseudo-anonymity that allows the artwork or Bitcoin as the product to be judged on its own merits without any kind of judgment or, the being tainted effectively by the person or individual that created them. So yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. Finally, a link is in the show notes to Neuromancer by William Gibson. Of course, that was published way back in 1984, but probably the most influential book of the cyberpunk movement. That also spawned the Mondo 2000 magazine. Anyone remember that? I used to read that back in the day. I guess it would have been the 90s when I was looking at Mondo 2000, a short-lived but very influential cyberpunk magazine. Okay, that was us. Thank you again for listening. This was the 50th episode of the Crypto Conversation podcast for a brave and new coin.